Hello, Miss. First of all, we are very grateful for the presence of Miss Bisma Askari on this occasion today. Three of us, namely myself, Miss Sakonita Saidong,
Alia Ahmad Marbawi.
And I, Abiyu Arya Putra.
we created this interview for the introduction to Architecture College course in BINUS University under the guidance of Primavera de staff. And then we will start this podcast session with question number 1. Are you ready, Miss?
Definitely ready.
Okay, great to know. The first question is, what was your motivation for choosing the field of architecture?
So my story with architecture goes really far back because as a child, I was very involved in, I know it's easy to say this now when I look back at it, but that's where the connection happens. I was very involved in not only my right brain being activated with being involved in art. The brain is divided into left and right. One is your logical side, one is your creative side. So I was very involved in art. And then as well as things like maths, structures, physics, things like that at a very young age, where I was taking in part in competitions for both. So when it came to choosing, actually even prior to that, when it came to choosing my field of profession and what I wanted to study and what I wanted to take forward as a career, architecture was the perfect amalgamation of both my preferences in life and what I like doing. So it was a very simple and easy choice for me over there. And of course, at that time, when you're choosing the field of architecture or any field for that matter, you're not well aware of what's going to happen in it. There are many, experiences and like surprises that come along the way, but there's a lot to learn from that. And so that was the reason why I particularly, at a very young age of, if I'll be very honest, at the age of 12, I knew exactly that I wanted to study architecture. And from there, I just held on to that and proceeded forward.
Okay, that's a great answer, Smith. Okay, can I go for the second question?
Sure.
Okay. So is architecture your first choices or do you have another choices?
Architecture was definitely my first choice. However, I remember when I was submitting my papers to my university that I was applying to, and I was doing an early decision, my mother begged me. She's like, your sister studied at the same art school. She did 4 years for textile design. Don't do architecture. It's 5 years. My mother and I were having an argument over there, and she said, okay, put in a second choice of graphic design. Nothing doing. I said, I had an argument with her over there, and I said, architecture it is, or I'm not studying anything. So then she gave in and caved in and allowed me to proceed with it.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Miss. And can we jump to the question number 3?
Sure.
And question number 3, have you ever been interested in becoming an academic or lecturer?
So to be fair and honest, I don't know, as you must have seen on my LinkedIn profile, I have been working as an adjunct faculty from time to time, based on my workload at the firm that I work at. Now, because I head a department, I'm unable to do so, but even now, I am planning on going back to teaching. I do advise for thesis on a regular basis, and I am officially thinking of going back to academia as well as an adjunct faculty.
Thank you, Miss. Can we proceed to the fourth question?
Sure.
Based on your LinkedIn page, you have studied at the Indus Valley School of Architecture. Did you experience any difficulties during your studies during college?
As you know, architecture is not an easy field. Oh, actually, you will find out more so in your time while studying it. But it's not an easy field. It's harder. So my university has 5 other disciplines available over there as well, but they're all related to art and design. Architecture is the only technical discipline that's available. So while all our friends were having fun and enjoying themselves doing artistic, creative things, we were stuck in our studios, designing away on our drafting boards and whatever not. I won't say while I was studying it, but more so after, because in my country, there are not as many practicing female architects. So in that sense, it was a little harder, but not while I was studying it.
Okay. I would feel the same way. Architect is hard.
You're just in your first year. It's not that hard right now. As long as you're, by the way, that's one thing. As long as you, as I said, if you are passionate about it, it will not be hard. So people ask me, because I graduated while I was studying, I was also part of the student council. I was in my 5th year of architecture. I was also president of the student council of my university and everything. So people ask me, how did you manage that? We found architecture so difficult. How did you manage all those things? But as an architect, you're trained to multitask. And as long as you're enjoying what you're doing and you're multitasking, getting everything done, I think it's all possible.
Okay, thank you for the answers, Miss. Okay, for the 5th question, do you have an architectural role model?
Well, I would say there have been numerous role models at my younger age while I was studying architecture, and they've kept on changing from time to time. But through the experiences that I've come across, through my practice, through whatever is happening in my country, the contextual lay of the land and things like that, I would say the environment, what are our surroundings, the people who you're designing for, that is where you take your lead from, rather than, yes, there are many architects globally who have many good aspects to them, and you can learn from all of them, but everyone makes their own space in their own niche, in their own context. So yes, I could say I was inspired by Zaha Hadid being the first, well-recognized female architect. And I don't know if this you won't find on my LinkedIn, but I did have a job offer from her firm in London while she was still alive. But unfortunately, due to some personal reasons, I was unable to go across at that time. And I'm cursing myself now, but it's okay. It is what life has planned, so it doesn't matter. Coming back to your question, yes, there are many architects from across the globe where I can even look at even my friends in Indonesia, for example, whether it's Andy, or whether it's even senior architects. If you look across Jeffrey Bawa, you look at, okay, so Jeffrey Bawa was one of the people, it's the Sri Lankan architect Jeffrey Bawa was one of the architects I did think of as a role model for one particular aspect of designing with regards to my country. Zaha Hadid was for being a female architect and being in a male dominated profession. She made her mark, So there are many different architects who I have looked towards for many different reasons, and their different essences have made me who I am today.
Okay, so can we jump to the question number 6?
Sure.
Question number 6 is, what is the job of an interior architect looks like?
Okay, so my degree is in architecture. It's a 5-year degree in architecture. But yes, you might be wondering, why did I go into interior architecture or interior? Well, people call it interior design, but in our office, we call it interior architecture. I don't perceive there to be a difference in that sense, because whenever you're designing a building, you have to look at it externally and you have to look at it internally. Sometimes the design goes internal to external, or it goes external to internal. The firm that I work for, we're one of the largest firms in the country, and we've existed for nearly 48 years. And we've been doing projects from different scales. So I know it says that I head the interior department, but In that, I would say the projects that my team covers vary from small scale interiors to small scale architecture of like 200 to 400 square yard buildings, residences, pro bono social work projects, etc. Coming back to your question of what is the work of an interior architect, same as any architect, the prime purpose of an architect is, yes, to design, and then to take the whole team along together and get the whole project together and be the leader per se, whether it's for the client, whether it's for the contractor, whether it's for the consultants. So yes, the scale has changed and it's come to a micro scale, but I think the responsibilities per se, when you look at it in larger context of design, management, whether it's your site visits, your meetings, it's all the same. It's just the scale changes. So, and you're going internal rather than external. But having said that, most of the times we go internal to external as well, where we end up redoing facades, we end up adding to the architecture and things like that. So I don't know if I've answered your question particularly in detail, but that's what I feel the role of an architect, whether interior, exterior, landscape, lighting, whatever, that doesn't change because it still comes back to having to design a space and design for people.
Okay, the next is the seventh question. Based on your experience that we read from your LinkedIn, you are an expert in interior design and interior architecture. What are the differences between interior design and interior architecture? Then what are the respective challenges you face with these two fields?
So it's a very thin line, to be honest. The reason why in my country particularly, now when I say the reason why I'm going to define this a little to give you a little contextual background to it, you know how in older times, meaning maybe 20 years ago, at least in countries like mine and our neighboring countries, we had a lot of women who were maybe housewives and they decided to keep themselves busy by saying that they're doing interior designing or interior designing for people, whereas they were just doing interior decoration in terms of they were choosing the upholstery of a sofa or something like that. So that terminology in my country has become a little tainted in terms of an interior designer. But an interior designer and an interior architect, the only difference, the very thin fine line for me would be where an interior architect gets involved more into the structure, the architecture, the built form, whereas an interior designer looks at the additional furnishings with it, whereas it's the lighting, the ceilings, the wall finishes, the furniture, the ergonomics of things, how all of those things are going to come together and amalgamate. We end up doing both those things together. So I don't know if there's a term in between, but it covers all those aspects. For example, I was just working on a heritage project, a heritage hospital project, and it had a lot more structure and architecture involved in it, whereas it was a building, an old stone building with about 100 different arches, and a number of those arches were collapsing because of the heat stone. Being an architect, I know how those things function, that if a keystone falls out, how the structure of the arch collapses, how the other walls started collapsing, and they were going out of, a geometry. And I had the solutions for that. Whereas people in my team who are interior designers and do not have the architectural background were not able to understand or grasp that and resolve it as easily as an architect who is practicing interiors would. So it's a thin line, but it gets blurred.
Okay. I get it now. So for this question number 8, what factors do you prioritize in interior design and architectural design? Is it utility, lighting, materials, or do you have another answer?
Okay, so I think the key factor for any kind of architecture interior designing is who you are designing for, who is using the space, what they're going to gain out of that space, what will it add on to their life in whichever way, because you can design for people from many different backgrounds. So you need to be versatile to be able to understand from their perspective what you're designing and who you're designing. I remember being back in school and my teacher that time, my studio teacher that time said, you have to always change your thinking caps. You have to put on a thinking cap as your client, whoever the client is. You have to put on your thinking cap as a visitor to the project, as an outsider, the person who's going to construct it, many different aspects of who. So the main focus should be what you're designing, who you're designing it for, and is it giving back to them what is needed. So as I said, yes, we do design for commercial architects, for commercial projects as well. We do have residential clients as well. But on the other hand, I will be designing a social work project as well on the other side. So I have to look at key factors of money, cost effectiveness, all of those factors, yet looking at the functionality, the design aesthetics, the detailing, the materiality, all those factors come in. But primary factor is you are solving the problem of your client in terms of space, functionality, and giving them the improvement that they were looking for.
Okay.
Spatial improvement.
Okay, so can we jump to the question number 9, Miss?
Yes.
Okay, question number 9. What are your difficulties in designing interior? What if the room is narrow, or if the client budget is small, or do you have another view?
So I always look at every problem as an opportunity, whether it's a difficult situation, because most interiors you may get are existing spaces and you have to work with whatever you have, or you may have a design budget constraint. Every situation is seen as an opportunity. Every problem is seen as an opportunity. And you, in fact, I have more fun in those situations where you have to challenge yourself to think a little differently, to think a little cost effectively, to think a little more out of the box to solve the problem, rather than just trying to massage my own ego by designing what is my whim or my fancy. Because at the end of the day, yes, I as an architect, I do want to design something that would be my whim, my fancy. But at the end of the day, I'm catering to a client. I'm catering to the user. So that needs to come into play. Problems or challenges are always seen as opportunities. They're seen as learning curves. Interiors, yes, have a little more challenges because you're working with an existing structure. And sometimes you think, why did the architect not think in a better direction, or why did they not solve this? Why have they left us in this difficult situation? But then you come up with solutions to solve it. That's where your creativity comes to play. That's where, you're like, oh, okay, this can be done to resolve the matter, or this can be done to add that oomph factor, which I'm not able to get. Like, for example, if I have a height restriction, there are certain things that you could do to give that, or it's an indoor building, very few openings, the type of lighting, the type of, different factors that you can do, how you can, maybe I'm not allowed to open more fenestrations in the facade to get in sunlight, but what you can do to still give that feeling, whether it's a certain kind of daylight lighting, adding nature, and to replicate and emulate what you don't have available within the structure.
That's amazing. Thank you, Miss. Okay, for the next question, the 10th question, what is your view of Feng Shui in interior design?
So Feng Shui does play a role in interior design. Yes, there are. I know that I've walked into spaces where I'm feeling because either whether it's a Feng Shui, whether it's a design, a lot of people end up feeling it. Sometimes they don't understand the reason why they're not liking a space. Personal preferences aside, some people get an internal feeling, and these are all things related to Feng Shui, where we all exist in a universe and everything plays a role, whether it's your solar system, your sun, moon, all of those factors, they all come into play at some point, even in us. So of course they would come into play within a space as well. So you have good vibes of a space as well. So yes, the way you plan a room, you shouldn't have a mirror right on the entry because it bounces back your good luck and all, you know. How the light comes into a room, it really matters. That is also part of Feng Shui. The way a room could be or a space could be angled or rotated or designed, giving a design in a particular direction, whether it's north, south, east, or west. All of these things play a factor. Yes, maybe sometimes those factors are by architects when they're just practicing architecture are ignored. But when maybe on a smaller scale project, they can still be seen, or interior projects, they still can be seen to the best of their ability. Because again, in interior, there are certain limitations of the structure, of the architecture, where you can work in a certain way. But then there are certain other lists of Feng Shui factors that you can do to improve that, by color, by nature, addition of nature and things like that, or the way maybe a bed is positioned. The mirror, as I said, the mirror should never be right in front of an opening because they say it bounces back good luck from your entry. So yes, they do matter. Do they come into daily life designing in terms of maybe for houses? Yes. Do people put a lot of emphasis, as in when I say people, clients put a lot of emphasis on it? Not particularly. But at the back of our head, it can be seen as a design principle or a design guideline that we can use as a tool to help us design.
Okay, that's amazing. So for the next question, do you agree that room condition can affect a person's psychology, and what do you think?
Sorry, I missed that.
Okay. Do you agree that room condition can affect person's psychology, and what do you think?
Yes, room conditions can play a major role in a person's psychology. I mean, for example, when you go back and you read about history, what Hitler did during his time, he kept people in the camps. They were in slanted spaces. So if you read about certain psychologies and things like that, for example, slanted spaces can make you feel claustrophobic. They can make you feel nauseous and add a certain kind of a fear to you. And that's what he wanted to instill in the prisoners, right, at that point. So yes, room conditioning, the way it's planned, the way it's designed, all of those factors can have a psychological impact on people and what they're going through. The room colors, for example, is there daylight coming in? Are there tall spaces, small, short spaces in height? All of those factors do matter. Everything does have an impact on human psychology in a way. We don't perceive it as much. Now mental awareness, mental health mental health awareness has increased over the last few years. But before that, people did not pay much attention to it. And these factors need to be looked at when architects are designing, whether it's color, whether it's space, whether it's these basic elements have to be kept in mind. Yes.
Okay, jump to the question number 12. When designing interior, do you pay attention to local myth?
Local myths, did you say?
Yes, local myth.
I don't know if there are too many local. Well, yeah, okay. There are not many in terms of spaces in our country. Local myths. So nothing in particular. Yes, Feng Shui is one thing, but that's not a myth. That's a way of improving a spatial design. I don't think there are any particular myths with regards to interiors. No, in Pakistan at least.
Okay. For the next question, the 13th question, based on your LinkedIn area of expertise, you wrote that one of them is sustainable design. What do you think sustainable design is like?
So my perspective on sustainable design is a little different. It actually falls into sustainable design has sustainability. For example, has 4 different aspects to it. You've got the economic one. You've got economic. You've got so 2 that I look at are socio-cultural and humanistic. One is economic, and I'm forgetting one more. So when I look at socio-economic and socio-cultural and humanistic, these are the factors that I regard with have regard with to sustainability. Why so? We as a country in Pakistan have a lot of poverty here, and sustainable design, I would say, is not just about having a sustainable building and materials and all of that. Yes, those factors come into our architecture in general, but sustainable design for me is also about philanthropic work. Sustainable design is also about social responsive work, a social responsive architecture where you're giving back to society, you're uplifting people as well. So I look at sustainability of people in the process as well. Yes, you have to look at sustainable design in terms of the building in itself being sustainable, whether it's the use of materiality, the structure, all of those factors do come in. They come in on a regular for us because we do use indigenous materials and methods of construction. So going back to the vernacular systems does take a play in our work. So that's a given. But the other aspect that I do think of for sustainable design is also the sustainability of people, the user. That is also very important, where your architecture can help them in the process uplift and improve themselves. So I know people don't think of this aspect as much, but that's one way I perceive it, because I feel people are the crux in architecture as well. Without people, who are we designing for? So if we do not help them and our architecture does not help them, what is our point? So I know you will not get the same answer. Yes, that sustainable design that I have on my LinkedIn is the technical checklist of sustainable design. I do have that. But I do want to share and that you would get the same answer as any other architect would give you. But my other perspective that I have been developing with time internally is that it's the humanistic approach of sustainable design that matters, which is the socio-cultural sustainability as well, where you are sustaining certain cultures, histories, traditions which are dying in our country, in your country as well, maybe in certain areas, and those need to be preserved and conserved. So preservation of those social cultures and that humanistic approach also does play a role in sustainability for me. I don't know if I've answered you the way you wanted to hear it, but that's my perspective on it.
Okay, that's amazing. So for the next question, have you ever felt creative block or run out of ideas, and what is the solution to overcome this situation?
So yes, every designer will have a creative block at some time, especially when it comes to a specific project or anything like that. What I do to overcome that, I don't only look at architecture to design architecture. I'm a people observer, a people watcher. Because when you watch people, when you observe people and their habits, you are able to design better for them. I look towards nature. for that creativity as well. I look towards history, traditions. I look towards whether it's music, whether it's writings, whether it's poetry, whether it's art. You can get any creative inspiration from any of these directions, right? So I keep myself involved in a lot of activities. And another thing that I do also look at is people who have no association or affiliation with architecture. Speak to them sometimes, get their perspective. The different perspective, the other angle always helps get rid of that creative block as well. Why? Because we as architects think in a certain direction, in a certain way. We sometimes need to switch that thinking off or get a different perspective in that way to be able to get out of our one lane thinking. We need to, you as an architect, you have to look at many different things for creativity and to break your creative block. Sorry. So I sometimes, whether I'm in office and I've got a creative block, I will go and have a chat with someone who is just making a model or something or the other, who just I'll go read a book or in our library, and the book doesn't have to be related to architecture. It could be related to poetry. I would listen to music. I would just suddenly start sketching randomly or anything that can just give me that pause and then help me to think back and come back with fresh eyes and a fresh mind to the problem.
Okay, that's very great answer. So next to the question number 15, we know that you have joined the Acacia Commit on Young Architect. What motivated you to join that association, and what is your motivation to become chairperson at Acacia Commit on Young Architect?
So as I said, I'm a people person. I like humanistic interaction. I like so I wouldn't say serving people, but like being around people. I get a high from being with people, interacting with people, doing things with them, having ideas, discussion, all of those things. The motivation to get into Acacia Committee of Young Architects just as a representative was the one that we were going to Japan, yes. The other was that I would be representing my country. I take extreme pride in my country, my identity, and would love to represent and love any opportunity to represent my country on an international platform. So that's where it started. Of course, it was for architecture, something that I'm passionate about. But given the fact that it was also to represent my country, I took great pride in that. And of course, we were heading to Japan. So that was the kickstart of my thing of entering Acacia Committee on Young Architects. What motivated me to become the chairperson? So again, my president of my institute felt that I could run for the elections for it. They thought I'd be a good candidate. Not that I'm one to run for positions and all of that. Just by seeing how I was interacting, they felt that I could be a good fit for the situation, and luck was on my side. I won the election against a very dear friend of mine from Indonesia, but he's now going to be chairperson after me. And my motivation was young architects across Asia, specifically female architects. I don't mean to discriminate against you, but for all architects, but primarily female architects, because why I say female architects? Yes, there are architects are recognized across the globe, with very few female architects being recognized. Another reason why I was my aim to come into Acacia Committee of Young Architects and become the chairperson was to represent young architects across Asia as well, who don't have, they do have a voice. They are doing what they do, but I remember being back in university and they're saying that you will only become a famous architect or a recognized architect when you are 75 and have white hair. No, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. And you don't have to be a man just to be recognized in the field of architecture. You can be young, you can be under 40, you can be a woman, you can be a man, you can be anything you like and still be recognized for your work, because it's your work. It's not about how many white hairs you have or how many wrinkles you have or anything like that. So I know this is a really strange answer, but yes, to represent young architects and have them be represented and have the voice be heard on that platform was my aim.
Okay, Miss.
You were funny. It's really funny.
Question. According to your LinkedIn, you are currently a unit head of interior design. What difficulties do you experience in managing the people you lead?
So when you're head of a department and you have to deal with everything related to the department, whether it's from design to the CAD team, to 3D team, to the project management, to the contracts, to the tender documents, to the everything, to the fact that even, my team member's computer has gone bad, or whether it's, that person needs to go on leave and this project is happening. So all of those things come into play. I mean, I'm just giving you the basics. All of those things come into play. You have to, again, deal with many different people from different backgrounds, people with different experiences, and people with different problems in their own lives. And you have to be able to be human enough to understand their concerns, yet be able to pull out that whip and say, okay, work needs to be done as well. So whether it's one of my CAD teams or my technical team's father who passed away and he didn't come in for the whole week, I understand that, but then projects still need to continue, and I had to realign everything in the process, try and get the work done, because commitment still holds strong. I can't tell a client that, there's been a death in the family of one of my technical team or any such thing like that. So work has to carry on. People have to be managed. That is the role of a leader or a person heading something, is that they have to have the ability to take everyone along with them. You can't just be, either you can be Hitler and rule over them, or you work with them. And I prefer the latter, where I work with people rather than ordering them around. So if one of my team members is lacking in something and I can facilitate the process or ease their difficulty, I will step in and do it, even if it happens to be that I need to make a tender document or take out some quantities for the tender documents or bill of quantities or whatever not. I tend to fill in myself in whichever place I am needed to get the job done, because that's what the task at hand is. You need to get the work done, you need to manage the people, you need to manage the time. Everything needs to be taken all together. So holistically, you have to look at whether it's the department, the people, the projects, everything together. So would I say it's difficult? Yes, some people find it difficult, but for me, it gives me, as I said, these type of challenges give me high in that sense, and they motivate me to work faster. And for example, I can tell you, when I'm working on, my team only has there's a slow time in the year when the year is ending, the financial year is ending, and things will slow down because, there need to be project approvals and things like that. So there will be a time at that time when we're doing lesser projects, maybe 5 projects instead of 35. And I'll be like, okay, it's okay, we can slow this down. And, I generally slow down myself because it's not giving me that rush to, okay, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, all of that. So I feel the multitasking, the management, all of that gives me a rush, and I enjoy that more. So I don't see challenges per se in that. But yes, the ability to work with different people is a task that you have, is a feature of yourself that you need to develop over time. It doesn't come easily. First, initially, when I used to work with people, my CAD team, and they couldn't understand basics or certain resolutions, I used to be like, where the hell are they going? Why can't they understand this? But now it's just become second nature to explain it to them, maybe through experience, the fact that I've even taught on and off and interacted with, where you have to explain things to people a lot more. You have to have that patience to do so, and that comes with time. When you're a younger architect, you're like, no, I need this done. But with time, you tend to realize things will happen. Things will happen in their pace, their time. There is humanistic time for everything. So it all happens. Challenge, maybe 5 years or 10 years ago, I would have seen it as a challenge. Now, no, not so much.
Okay, thank you. So for the next question, it is similar with the question that Nisa already asked. So you have been a leader. What do you think is an effective way or another way to lead a team so that goals are achieved?
Again, working with your team. You are not a leader is nothing without a team. An army general is nothing without his soldiers behind him. So a leader is nothing without their team. You have to be able to work with people and take them along with you. It's not about them doing the work to raise you higher. You have to do the work together to raise them higher as well. It's not about me at the end of the day. It's about us as a team. That's how I perceive leadership to be. It's not a one-man show. It has to be a collective approach to something. And that is the best way to be a leader rather than to be a dictator.
Okay, so can we move to the next question, Miss? Okay, question number 18. Architects have different and subjective tasks. So how do you overcome differences of opinion in a work environment?
So I think the most differences of opinion I do have with are my principal architect of the firm that I'm at, and he's a 75-year-old gentleman, more like my grandfather. He's someone who taught me at university as well. The only reason we both tend to disagree on something in design while we're working is because we're both passionately involved in the project. We get so invested that we start, but then we have heated discussions. We may agree to disagree, but it's for the greater good of the project. Whatever is better for the architecture, for the project, for the final outcome is where you decide to, okay, say, that's where my line is. We know that it's nothing personal with anyone. It's about whatever task you have at hand, whatever is a greater good for it. There is no point in keeping egos in architecture or in anything, let's say. Egos do not help anyone, because what happens is that with egos and in good time, you tend to think that you are supreme, you are the best. No one is supreme, no one is the best, no one knows everything. Life is all about a learning process, day in and day out. I can be learning from you today. Whatever conversation we're having, I'm learning something from all of you today. So I'm not the teacher, I'm not the supreme. I'm still a student of life. Not maybe I've done my bachelor's, sure, I've done my this, sure, but that doesn't matter. I'm learning every day, every second of every day. You as a person need to continue learning. learn to interact with people, learn to be at a site and interact with your contractors, your consultants. It's always a learning curve. And once you start learning these things of how to deal with people, you get better at managing those disagreements and those differences of opinion per se. And sometimes you yourself realize that it's not that important to have that difference of opinion, because once you make those paper planes of your ego, the difference of opinion also reduces. Let's be honest.
Thank you for your insight. Okay, let's continue to the 19th question. Based on the information we read from your LinkedIn, you have been an intern at several architecture firms. What are the challenges you face in the intern world?
So internships, when I did them back in the day, again, I was always eager to learn at that point as well. I was lucky enough to get good opportunities for internships where we had the freedom to design, learn, whereas sometimes interns are just given tasks where, okay, make this presentation or label this or calculate this. No, I had the opportunity in the 3 firms that I interned, and they are like the top firms in the country and in my city, where I got to interact with the principals. I was lucky enough because they also came and taught at my university, at my alma mater as well, at numerous different times. So that interaction was a learning experience in itself. And that sometimes when you just interact with a senior, you get to pick up a lot more rather than whether it's how to draft something or design something. You learn life skills, which add to your experience of architecture as well. And yes, I know I'm talking more about the humanistic approach of everything that I'm referring to, but I feel that's what the human interactions that you have on a day-to-day basis, whether it's your classmates, whether it's your faculty, whether it's even someone like a peon in your school or something or the other, you get to learn something from everyone. You get to pick up on something, some little experience that will stick with you in the back of your head. You may not remember what, the name of a building or who the architect was or which city it's, all the history that you learn, which you people will learn in your next couple of years, I'm assuming. I don't know if you've started history of architecture yet. Have you? Have you started studying history of architecture yet?
Yes, we
Yes.
have a little
So
bit.
maybe after graduation, you may forget all of those details about, where that building was made, who was the patron of it, who was the architect, what century it was made in, and blah, 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 blah. But you remember those interactions. Like I will remember this interaction with the 3 of you, however short or however long it is, but I will remember it and take something from it. And I hope you do too. So for me, internships, yes, you learn all the technical stuff and everything, but the opportunity to interact with the greats of architecture in my country was a bigger learning experience for me in my internships.
Okay. Next, for the next question, if you wouldn't mind, could you tell us about your journey to become Vice President at the Institute of Architect Pakistan?
Vice President, Vice President,
Vice
right?
President.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I did manage to become the youngest Vice President in the Institute of Architects Pakistan. My journey to that, I'm a doer. I'm not someone who just gives orders or delegates work. I can do that too, but I am someone who believes in getting the job done. So my journey has been such that I was first in one of the chapters as honorary secretary of the chapter. And thanks to the work that I did there, then I advanced into someone then told me to run for the elections for the National Council, which is the institute itself. And I first became the honorary secretary over there. And of course, took on tasks, and they saw the good work that I was doing, that I was voted to the position of vice president. There were a number of things that I was managing nationally in our institute, which led me to rise to that position, as people were looking at me as a younger architect who was able to take on the role that maybe a lot of senior architects were not able to. So the belief in me came through the work I did, and my work ethics, and how I put that forward, and what I did to proudly represent. I take pride in my institute, as I'm sure you all will do in good time. And that's what is important, how you represent whichever organization that you belong to is very important. You need to take pride in that in good time. So the journey to that was just through the work that I did, and that allowed me to rise to the positions that have been stated on my LinkedIn.
Okay, that's an amazing answer. So can we jump to the next question? Okay, so the last question is, what is the best advice you would give to us, the first semester architecture students?
There are too many, firstly. One, for starters, you will, even after you graduate, you will always remain a student, and you will always be eager to learn and curious to learn from anyone around you, any experience, any person around you, because that just makes you a stronger designer when you keep on learning from different experiences. Two is to see every problem as an opportunity and a challenge to design better. It's an opportunity that those challenges present to you. Three, don't give up at all. It is going to be really hard, really, really, really hard. And you'll be like, what the hell did I think? Why did I decide to do this? A night before my thesis jury, I said, I'm not doing it. I literally told my family, I'm not presenting, I'll do it next year. My problem is I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist. So I felt my thesis, or my presentation, not my thesis, but my presentation was not up to mark. I told my family, I said, I'm not doing it. They said, just do it. It's ready, just present it. I was like, no. Finally, whatever happened, I pushed myself to do it. But the idea is that you don't give up. Whatever you design, whatever you have come up with, present it with conviction. Do not give up on a dream, but also know where to draw the line on design. Design can keep on going on and on and on, and that's where we lose our time management and things like that, especially when we're students, because we're in those ideas that, oh, I can design like this and I want to design this greatly and all. But there needs to be a line where you draw and you say, this is my design, and I need to know when to present to people. So I'm not going to leave you with one thought as to what it is. I've left you with 2, 3, or 4 thoughts as to, for example, problems are opportunities, keep on learning always, and never give up. These are 3 things that you need to keep with yourself while you're studying architecture, because they will eventually help you, I feel. And the motivation needs to be there, and the passion needs to be there to continue in this field, which is not that easy. But if you do it with passion and you do it with happiness, it will seem easy in comparison to the big task it feels at times.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer, Miss. We have asked all the questions completely. This indicates that this interview session has been completed. We really appreciate Miss Bisma enthusiasm in answering all the questions, and this is very valuable knowledge for us, and we want this knowledge to be our profession as architectural student. We really say thank you very much to Miss Bisma for this opportunity.
Also, we can conclude that interior designing was taken into many factors. Then, as an architect, Ms. Bisma taught us about don't give up on learning and communication are so important. So, I asked a permission, can we take photo together to remember our memories?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you all.
once again,
And I don't know if I answered all your questions the way you wanted them to be answered, but I hope it helps and I hope the assignment goes well for you all.
Yes.
And I hope my friend and sister Desra has been teaching you all well.